as somebody who runs a major gun channel, who makes a living creating gun content, where do you see the best path forward with the future of gun-related content on the internet?
I see a lot of potential paths. For someone in my position, a lot of it is going to be reactive in nature. I think if I were running YouTube, even if if they let me run it, but put on a specific set of conditions of we're only going to allow this sort of content, I would have to think that the thing I would do would be to actually institute a program where at least large channels have representatives, people they can actually talk to. They're treated like actual partners. YouTube calls their system the partner program, but the partner point is a complete joke. There's no partnership at all. You're allowed to run ads on your videos. If YouTube had some system whereby at a certain scale, you're actually treated like a partner and perhaps trusted, you wouldn't have to have weird algorithmic decisions made on well-established channels. If you had a system with actual trustworthy humans who could vouch for trustworthy channels, and of course there'd be some mechanism for revoking that trust if it's abused, but that's a system of partnership. To me, that's a sustainable, mutually beneficial system. And clearly that's the sort of thing that goes on with the entertainment industry on YouTube. If I was running a TV channel, I am pretty sure that the rules are different for me on YouTube than if I am actually an independent creator.
That's true.
Now, from a creator's...
Even in the silencer situation, I guarantee they weren't striking, Universal's YouTube channel for every time a silencer is screwed on in a movie, or really like gamers, for instance. Like that was the other problem with this interpretation that they had for that several months of like, what are you trying to even accomplish with this? Like, first of all, attaching a suppressor to a gun is not some sort of high level operation that requires a lot of brain power. And second of all, it's in all kinds of media beyond gun tuber videos. You know what I mean? Like, what are you trying to accomplish?
It's also worth pointing out that, and this is a little bit hazy to me because again, none of this was actually formally put in place, but I've had people tell me that they got channel strikes for attaching optics to firearms, like for mounting a red dot on a gun, and also for attaching 30-round magazines, like for just clipping them, putting a magazine into a gun. I can't verify that beyond what I'm being told, partly because the channel owner wasn't actually told a specific.
I did ask about the magazine thing and didn't get an explicit response to it. Just again, that the same sort of, we haven't changed our policy. There's no change in policy was sort of the main point that they were trying to get across to me when I was talking to them. I was sending them all these videos, and to their credit, they did actually go through, and it seems as though they've restored all the videos they said they were going to, and the channels that had been affected. So they did actually follow through on what they said they were going to do. But yeah, as far as explanation for why this happened or why they reversed themselves, really didn't get anything to that regard, other than just creators were upset. We reviewed it, and so we realized that we'd made a mistake. That is basically the summation of their point of view. And so you said here what you think YouTube should do, or what an ideal situation would be with a real partners program. But one, I imagine obviously you don't think they're going to do that. Yeah.
Oh God, no, of course not.
So I guess the question now, and you've been exploring this for years, to be fair, is what do you do as someone with a significant audience on YouTube, but who realizes the dangers in a unreliable platform like that? And so how do you see yourself progressing forward from this point?
So the way I see it, there are two large families of, when it comes to large gun channels, there are two different schools of thought. One of them is based on sort of a Patreon or Utreon style model of direct viewer support. And one of them is based on YouTube monetization and sponsorship. And none of these are hard and fast lines. Everyone is pretty much a combination of both. But for a channel like mine that is primarily supported directly by users, That's a much smaller number of users than the views that a big channel can get on YouTube. So
Right.
I can take my content and put it on another alternative platform. And as long as I have a way to get my videos in front of the eyes of the people who are actually paying for them, my channel can survive.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Very similar to how the Reload works, frankly. To be honest,
now,
membership support. That's a classic
right.
model for running a business like this. But if you can
And
do that, why not just leave YouTube altogether?
Because people are always leaving a Patreon style system, and you need to have a funnel to bring in new people who haven't been aware of your work, who are going to be interested in it. And YouTube is far and away, without any competition at all, the biggest platform for viewing. And so for the Reload, I'm sure it works this way for Forgotten Weapons as well. You get a lot of people watching your free content on YouTube who go, wow, this stuff's really cool. I like it. I want to support the Reload and I want to read more. I'll go join the membership program. And so
Right.
if you have to move to an alternate platform that has 1%, if that many, as many views, you lose that funnel, and it's a significant barrier to long-term growth of a channel.
Right.
Now,
and even beyond the business aspect of it, because that all makes sense from a business standpoint too. Obviously what you do also carries with it a sort of activism, a cultural activism and political activism. But is that another reason why you wouldn't want to leave, this large platform as well?
Absolutely. I mean, really, if you're getting into the business of making YouTube videos, you're getting into the business of creating content to show to people. And so it's always going to be the case, I think, that you want to show it to as many people as possible. And YouTube is by far the best platform because it has the most views. And there's the second group of channels that I would look at where they're primarily supported by sponsorships and YouTube monetization as well. And those two mechanisms are both directly dependent on number of views, not necessarily a hardcore, small nugget of viewer base that's willing to financially pay for it themselves, but just views from everybody, because that's what sponsors are looking for. They want to get their message to the largest possible audience. For those platforms, and a lot of these guys, by the way, it's not like one dude in his basement with a camera. A lot of these are real companies that have hired 3, 4, 10, 12 people. Like, they have payroll, they have major expenses to maintain. And moving to an alternate platform where they go from getting 1 million views on every video to getting 5,000 views on every video, the sponsorship money all completely goes away, because it's not viable for a sponsor to pay the same sort of money for 1% as much traction. And so for a lot of those channels, alternative platforms just, I think, that's not me, so I'm speculating here a bit, but the alternative platforms are just not a viable alternative for them, and they are going to fight tooth and nail to stay on YouTube.
Do you see any sort of replacement for YouTube coming up? I mean, Facebook video was a big thing for a couple of years, and then that fell flat. Elon has talked about trying to create some sort of, partnership program for creators on Twitter and to extend the length of videos that you can upload there. I mean, is there any, Utreon is obviously something you use, but are any of these things real competitors to YouTube in this sort of way? So
the best one that I think exists right now is Utreon. And frankly, they're largely the best because, and I think they did this with Othaius's advice, they've focused on competing with Patreon instead of trying to directly compete with YouTube. They've been a very viable platform for me, certainly still a far second to YouTube, but very good for what they are. And I think they have very good growth potential. What could happen in the future? Whoever knows. There's lots of social media platforms out there that used to be big and are now essentially a footnote. And there's nothing to say that next year YouTube won't have some fantastically successful competitor and go away, or at least lose its dominant position. At the same time, one of the other big concerns to me, as a person who produces long form content, and this I think covers most of the firearms YouTube community as well, all of the social media platforms are really focusing on very short form content, 30 to 60-second content. They want to be TikTok. The problem is they see themselves going away in competition with TikTok. Well, my 20-minute video on the nuances of, you know, how Mauser production changed between 1920 and 1923, that's never going to live on a TikTok 60-second viral video.
Right.
And it may very well be that, I mean, all of these platforms, your views do not come just from people actively searching for your content. That's generally a very small proportion. Most of your views come from active recommendations from an algorithm, where someone watches a video, and at the end of that, the platform suggests to them a couple other videos that they might also like based on what they've watched. And if platforms, as they're seeming to do, focus on only recommending, you know, attention-grabbing 30-second dance videos, nothing against dancing, but our sort of long-form informative content is going to go away, you know, or it's going to be inhibited substantially.